From the streets to the booth, giving voice to the groove, no holding back, every combo's the proof. It's the realest in the game, now we raising the roof. Real talk with Labzy, Labzy, Labzy. Real talk with Labzy, Labzy, Labzy. Real talk with Labzy, Labzy, Labzy. Real talk with Labzy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm yours truly, the legend himself, Labzy, aka the best motherfucker you ever met in the history of your life, and I can prove it to you even though I shouldn't. The most loyal, the most honest, and the most respected. Now, I have my next guest. She is a singer. She is also releasing a new song on the 25th, and we're going to be talking about that. This will be one of those. Like one of those short, like kind of half an hour kind of ones, because obviously due to her schedule, of course. But we are gonna bring her in right now. And yeah, so I remember I met my next guest at I think it was the Shot Kickers event on a Tuesday, and she was the main event that was there. And when I met her, had a bit of a chat with her, and then asked her if she wanted to be on the show. Said yeah, sure, da, da, da. And then had the opportunity to meet up with her last week and have a really great conversation just to see how do we bounce off each other, and yeah, and then that ended up being the me I was able to bounce. Hello, Shira.
Hello, I made it. Hi. How are
I
we?
I am blessed. I'm on. I feel like I'm on top of the world. But how are you, Shira? How's your
Oh,
mental health?
that's awesome. Oh, okay, we're going straight in. I've had a tough week. So, in the spirit of always keeping things real, I've had a tough week. There's lots of like endings and new beginnings, so it feels spiritually like a lot of death and rebirth right now. Um, and I do believe that the darkness comes before the light, but sometimes navigating the darkness can be tough. So that's
Oh
been
yeah.
my week. I'm navigating some stuff, but I have a lot to look forward to, and I'm just like trying to keep my attention on that.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And also because you've got a new song coming out very, 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 very soon, and I do want to talk about that. I do want to get that a little bit in a second, but for the viewers, the people that want to get to know you as an artist, how did music come to you? Like, was it always in the family, or like what inspired you to do music?
Yeah, I always say this to people who are just getting to know me, but I feel like I came out of the womb singing
Okay.
before I feel like I sang before I spoke. It just feels like it's in my blood. I did come from a musical family. Um, Everyone in my family was musical in some capacity. My grandmother was a songwriter. My dad was an incredible guitarist, and composer. My mum was a singer. My brother played piano. Um, and from a very young age, I guess I displayed my love of music and dance, and I was that that little 4 or 5 year old that was doing like shows and singing and doing drama lessons and dance and all the things.
So arts was very, you can say that arts has been a part of you since a very young age.
Yeah, it was just a natural thing, a natural inclination, a natural love. My first love, really,
Okay.
my greatest love.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And so when was the moment where you thought to yourself, you know what, let's actually give this music a go, like in terms of really investing in it? Like when was that moment?
You You know, I have an interesting answer, I feel, to that one
Hmm.
because as a little girl growing up, it was always my dream. Um, but life stuff happened and I lost a lot of, I guess, belief in myself after a few experiences. And I took a bit of a hiatus from music and I came full circle. And it was only a couple of years ago through that COVID crisis time when lots of things were crumbling that I felt like that was the time for me to go, what am I doing? Like, I'm not actually pursuing my greatest dream, and why else am I here? I think also my journey with spirituality and faith brought me closer, because as soon as I sort of got over myself, so to speak, and realized that this was gifted to me, it's not really about me overthinking it or wondering if I'm good enough. It's actually God's gift. So it's my job to nurture it. And when I started seeing it that way in the last few years, that's when I really leaned into it.
Yeah, I like that. And to be honest, that resonates with me as well. Like I've always felt that if we're not doing what we're gifted to do, it just feels like something's missing in ourselves, something's missing in our souls. And especially when life has a habit of trying to not take it away per se, but just trying to distract us from really pursuing our gifts. It does make you feel like you're very empty. You're very like you're not. It doesn't. It feels you're not doing things that fill your soul. Like we've always heard that. We always heard that story of you have a lot of millionaires and billionaires, and they can have all the money in the world, but yet they're still miserable. And then the answer to that is because their soul is not. The soul is not rich. The soul is not wealthy and then again, I've said this quote many times, is that the real wealth is determined how full the soul is. And once we
Mm.
really discover that, that's when we feel like we are serving the purpose into this world by pursuing whatever it is that we want to do, whether it's singing, whether it's podcasting, whether it's, dancing, whatever the case may be, because these are the types of gifts that were given to us from birth, if anything. And when it comes to your music, talk to me about support. Like when it comes to the support system, do you feel like you have a really good, well, did you ever feel like you didn't have a great support system until now, or do you still feel like you don't have a good support system in your career of music?
Um, I think that my answer to that is I really believe in energy and frequency and vibration. And I think that at the point in which I didn't believe in myself, I naturally didn't have the support system that I needed, because I wasn't attracting that. I wasn't calling that in. And as soon as I started to heal a lot of those beliefs, those those belief systems, um, and believe in myself more, then I started attracting more of a support system. And part of the decision to move to Melbourne was very much linked to pursuing music and just having a sense that there would be a greater community here. There was much more of an arts culture here. And I really feel for the first time in my life that I have created uh, such a beautiful community that has fully embraced me and my music. That's how I feel. That's my experience. But obviously, my experience is a reflection of what's happening inside of me. So that's how I've been feeling, and therefore that's what I've been seeing and witnessing. Um, and yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. And especially it's amazing how another place or another city can attract that energy. You know what I mean? Like and I've always found this very interesting as well, especially when it comes to people moving here from somewhere else. And it always makes me fascinated on what is it about Melbourne that a lot of creatives just come here and that kind of attracts them. I mean, you could have gone to Queensland, you could have gone to Adelaide. Like, what was it? What was it specifically about Melbourne that really called you? Was it like, just as you were saying? Was it mostly about the creative side that was really calling you here?
It's a feeling, it was an energy. Like before I pursued my life as an artist, I also had a business. And that business brought me to Melbourne several times for business trips and meetings and things like that. And I started to become acutely aware that every time I landed in Melbourne, I felt happier. I felt more relaxed. I felt more like inspired. My eyes were wider. I was excited to explore things. It was just a different energy. It took me a while to clock it, honestly. But when I did, I was like, the feeling in my body and the joy that I receive when I come to this city is very different to how I feel in Sydney. Sydney felt like a very um hustle culture, but not in that sort of healthy community, let's all support one another kind of way. It was kind of like a let's keep up with the Joneses. How do things look versus how do things feel? I think once you know something, it's hard to unknow it. Um, and so, yeah, that recognition of being in a city where art and culture was really appreciated, supporting one another was something that um, was a natural inclination to a lot of artists here. It's such a beautiful thing, you know. And I'm sure not everyone has that experience necessarily, but again, it's where you are in your journey. And so where I found myself was being in a city that inspired me and connecting with people who inspired me and embraced me. And that was what brought me here.
Okay. I love that. So when it comes to actually making the actual move itself,
Mhm.
right? That what were so when did you make that decision and how did the did you what were going through your mind thinking about, you know what, we need to I feel like Melbourne is calling me. The energy is exactly what I need to do this music thing. What were there any fears, like what obstacles, or any judgment even from family or friends to kind of stop you from coming here?
If there was, I blocked it out
Hmm.
because I made a decision at some point that like I knew very clearly what my path is, and anyone that doesn't support it will fall away, and anyone that does will be on the path with me, and I'm okay with that. Because at a certain point, you start having to make some really difficult and ruthless decisions about where your time goes, mostly, like not like saying no to birthdays and saying no to gatherings and being committed to your craft or being committed to not spending money on something because that money needs to go towards your project or um so wait, what was the original question?
Like the like I would say like the obstacles of
Oh yeah,
making
yeah,
these
yeah,
types of decisions.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So at first, anyone's judgment around that, I think I was actually very good at blocking that out. uh but like anything, it was a huge life change. I was taking a massive risk. Yeah, I would have been feeling copious amounts of grief for a life that was ending. I was grieving myself because a version of me was dying. Um, but a version was also being born. So lots of big feelings. It was a really big, big time. We're actually coming up to 2 years on the date that I moved to Melbourne. So my body is actually going through some sort of recognition of that time. Like I think that's part of why the last week has felt so heavy and so difficult. I really believe in that, like the body keeps score, and um yeah, so it was yeah, it was also a time of shedding because moving to Melbourne, I made the decision that Melbourne was a stepping stone, that as an artist, I was gearing up for a life of travel and a life of potentially, not having a home base for a while, maybe like that Melbourne would become my home base, but then I would eventually probably go to the States. Um, and so in my mind, I was like, we need to downsize, and the goal is to get down to living in two suitcases, like having two suitcases worth of stuff. I had a whole apartment worth of belongings, and I didn't quite manage to get down to two suitcases when I moved to Melbourne. It was more like 10 and change. But we definitely made a huge amount of progress. We shed a lot, we gave a lot away, we sold things. And I felt like that became the focus. Like I hyper focused on that, and that was kind of helped me get through all the other big feelings, because when you're shedding and you're clearing and you're cleaning, like that's actually a very cleansing, healthy process to go through. Um, and so that supported the death rebirth sort of that time, of that period. And then Melbourne felt like a fresh start, and the novelty wore off very quickly because it was still a massive challenge. I was also closing that business that I'd had that I mentioned before. There were financial challenges. It was just like a really heavy, dark time. And I speak about that openly, not to be like, I just want to be open about it because there are so many things to celebrate and so many wins to acknowledge. But I just want anyone that ever touches my story or my journey, I want them to have the full picture because I know what it's like to feel very helpless and feel like my dream is so far away. And if anyone's listening that feels like that, I want them to know, you can get through that time, even if you can't see it right now, because I was there. So it's really important that I, share that part of the story, the challenges, the difficulties, and how like 2 years ago my life looked so different, and I had this dream of finally going, you know what, I'm going to believe in myself and pursue my life as an artist, but I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to get this together, how it's going to happen, who with. I didn't know any of that. I just had mustered up enough belief to make some moves, one of them being moving to Melbourne
Mm.
and figuring everything out literally in real time as I went.
Yeah. And there, I think that all comes down to trusting your instinct as well. Instinct, sorry, as no matter how much, just as you said, like no matter how scary it can be, making this type of move, because you're going to be, far away from the old life, and it's just like if something happens, you can't just go back, something like down the road, you have to go to another state, and do all that, but okay, so tell me about so you've come to Melbourne, you've
Well,
settled
can I
in.
just say
Oh,
one
sorry.
thing?
Yes, of course.
Can I just say one thing on that? Yes, trusting my instinct, but also trusting God. At that point, my spirituality became a lot stronger, and I really believed that there's no way I would have been given this gift if I wasn't supposed to do something with it. And I also had to let go of the attachment of what that was actually going to look like. That's a really important thing to say too, because the pressure of, I still envision being on a Grammy stage, don't get me wrong. And I think manifesting is so important and having clarity and vision is so important. But it's the attachment and the pressure with the attachment that can actually create mountains and obstacles for us, is what I've found. So it was kind of like a process of going, I trust God because there's a greater there's a greater power, a greater source at play here. And there's so many things we think we can control that we can't. But I wouldn't have this gift if I wasn't meant to pursue it in some capacity. And I just have to keep taking one step at a time towards it and trust that whatever outcome that leads to is where I'm going. And that gives me a sense of peace as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree that spirituality, especially having God by your side, plays a massive role in any creative's life because again, this is one of the things that God has given us when we enter the world, and our job is to give that, basically use that gift, give it to the world, and blessings will come with it. No matter how small, no matter
Mm,
how big, that's what this is what we're supposed to do as gifted creatives. And no matter what it could be, and again, like and it is scary sometimes, especially moving into obviously another state, and you've settled in and everything like that. So for you, okay, in, you've moved into Melbourne. What was the next step now? Like what was next?
well, so I moved here and I didn't really know anyone. Um, Other than my vocal coach. I actually had a vocal coach that was based in
Hmm.
Melbourne. So that kept me sort of connected to a music community. And I would say, yeah, that was probably a blessing because there was a sense of community and there was something that was keeping me on track with like lessons and things like that, that was keeping me accountable.
Yes.
But, you know, my mental health was not great at the time. And I kind of just kept the idea that all I had to do was show up. I had little expectations of myself. So I would just show up to events. I'm a member of APRA as a songwriter. So if you're a songwriter watching this and you're not a member of APRA, look them up and join.
Okay.
But they do some really great events. They put on, panels and networking events for artists. I would go to different open mics. I would challenge myself to go to like 2 or 3 a week sometimes. And some of these times I really didn't have much in the tank. Like I told you, I was actually still struggling mentally and not feeling confident after what had happened and unsure of how things were going to go. But I think the key takeaway, because with podcasts, I really feel passionately that when people listen, there's like bite-sized moments that are really important. The key takeaway was just show up. Like that was my mantra. And, I did that for like 6 months, feeling like I wasn't really achieving anything. But after 6 months, I'd looked back and gone, even through that difficult time, actually just showing up had created so much because it created that community, which then led to, someone seeing me at an open mic, booking my first gig. That gig led to being booked for another gig. That led to, meeting someone that I wrote with, which led to me being introduced into this studio. Like it created a chain of opportunities and
Yeah.
all I did was show up, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
that
that's the
was the
most
game plan.
powerful
It was
thing.
show up.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was just going to say, like, the most powerful thing that you can do in your path in life is just to show up. People underestimate how showing up can actually make a huge difference. And that's why, like, even with me, like, even the power of showing up can actually make a huge difference. Even when I was obviously, even me getting to know you, I had to show up to Shot Kickers when you were hosting one time. And that took me to obviously to show up and obviously experience Shira as the artist as soon as she starts singing. And and then obviously introduce myself saying, hi, I'm Labzy, I have a podcast, blah 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 blah. And then here we are now, having the interview. And who knows what might open up from that too, which causes a chain reaction, even when I'm showing up in even different communities as well, like obviously with the breaking bread or hanging out with Donkey Man or whatever. The amount of like the chain reaction to just showing up has just been absolutely incredible. And so man, it's just been a blessing ever since. And even it's been a blessing for you as well. I've even seen your journey, and I can just tell that, as much as I know you go through a few things, but I can just tell that you still have that light. Every time I feel like every time I look at you, even the posts or whatever, I feel like you still got that light,
Oh,
and
thank you so much.
and and man, which also raises the question, like, for the people that don't know, because I already know this, but for the people that don't know,
Mm.
how do you center yourself mentally from all the noise and all the music, and how do you mentally recharge yourself?
Mm. Such a good question, and one I really like am passionate about, constantly exploring, but passionate about talking through. Um, it's a work in progress.
Okay.
That has to be said,
Mhm,
but I've been cultivating a bit of a toolkit for a while now.
mhm,
I believe in mental health practices. So, for one, I meditate and I practice yoga, and I'm a writer, so that's a cleansing process
mhm,
too. I have to be aware of my nervous system and when I'm a little bit off, you know, and uh, sometimes when that happens, it can happen before you know it and you're not actually aware. So, the muscle has been about how quickly I can recognize that I actually need to take a beat. And as much as just show up is my mantra,
mhm,
which it is,
mhm.
it's also a really interesting dance between showing up and knowing when to rest and knowing when not doing anything is the doing
Yeah.
something. Really important to be said. And that's a feminine power practice. I think it's harder for the masculine to know when to pause. Um, so
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I think it just takes practice though. I think it takes a willingness and a devotion first and foremost, which I think my superpower is my willingness to constantly sort of reflect and try and do better.
Mm,
And therefore I have collected these practices over time, and I'm just a little bit better at noticing uh, when I need to pull back, take time off Instagram, ask for support. Um, and that's been a journey for me, that's it. And it's still a work in progress. I still have moments where I haven't noticed it and I'm spiraling. And before I know it, I'm like, oh no, like I've not been sort of operating at the level I want to for a few days now or whatever, but that mental sort of squat, as I like to call it,
mm,
is the recognition point, the awareness, and the then taking action, because it's the same in
mm,
meditation. Everyone thinks that meditating is about not having thoughts, but actually the practice is about recognizing when you're thinking,
mm.
observing, and then going back to your mantra. So you're a human being. It's okay to have off days, but I guess the journey is learning how to navigate those with healthy coping mechanisms. And that that's a journey in itself. It takes practice.
Yeah. No, but I definitely agree with the what you when you were saying like for the feminine side, like yes, like you guys know when to take a break and stuff like that. With the masculine, we kind of definitely me, because it definitely hit me when you said that, because I basically like if I go to work, right, and I'm doing all the overtime and everything like that, but I just keep hustling, hustling, hustling until I physically burn out. Like if you ask me a simple question, like my brain will just make a zap pop noise and it'll just won't register no matter how much coffee I have or how much energy I try to have. My body's just like, yeah, no, we're done. We're like we yeah, and which can be bad because it can cause like the stress and can like make us feel
Well,
sick in
so,
physical way.
yeah, I mean, somewhere along the way, we've normalized getting to that
Mm,
point. I think actually the evolution comes in having practices in place where you don't reach that level of burnout, knowing when to pause before you even get there, and factoring that pause into your practice. So I always say, like, when I'm giving advice that I sometimes need to take myself, but specifically when I'm talking to my male friends, that you know, the best athletes in the world, the recovery time is as much factored into their game plan as the training. And that's a
absolutely.
really important thing that we forget to sort of focus on. Like, how are we recovering? How is that scheduled into where is our rest? Where is our time for joy? Where is our, time for healing? I'm still figuring that out too, because I find myself in burnout regularly, and but I feel like we've just normalized that, and we actually just need to get better at having practices in place that don't that that allow us to take rest before we reach burnout. I think that is a really beautiful goal to work towards, as a society.
Mm. Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And then even for me, like I've created this routine where I would do like I would work my job as normal. If there's a little bit of overtime, there's a little bit of overtime, but then there's like, okay, no, we have to stop now because I've got to do some stuff with the show. I've got to go to events, and that does mentally drain you. And then that's where I have that. If I have that few hours, whether it's in the morning or during the afternoon or whatever, I have to make sure that I'm taking my nap, or if I'm going for a walk somewhere to the park at Bringbank Park, to just to sort of just be away from the noise, just to really be mentally recharged, really, as I was questioning about it before. And yeah, and we just have to find that routine. Like, yes, we have to work to get the money. Of course, bills need to be paid, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, we need to be mentally rested in order to perform at our best.
We do. We do. And like anything, it just it just takes practice, and it takes getting to know yourself, and And also having good people around you that you can talk to openly and honestly about what you're experiencing. And sometimes you just need someone else to give you that encouragement or that support. And we can't do everything on our own. It literally does take a village. So
Mm.
receiving that support is learning how to receive that support,
Mm.
is important
We
too.
just got to find our
Yeah,
tribe.
it's all part of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we find our tribe, that's when we good. We're fine. We have all the support we need. We can smash this now. It's all good.
It
Okay,
does feel
because
pretty good
oh
to have a
yeah,
tribe.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I know we have to shorten the interview because I know you've got your writing to do and stuff like that. But I do want to talk about
Mm.
your new single, "Fly," and
Yay.
so what inspired this song?
Uh, well, okay. So ending a situationship that I realized was a bit of a pattern, probably, is the short answer.
Mhm.
But like spiritually speaking, recognizing the practice of letting something go in order to make space, letting something go that wasn't serving in order to make space for something that will. Um, that inspired the song, I think that the song was written more like a lot of mine are, was written more like a journal entry. It was a healing process. I wrote it to resolve my emotions as I do. Um, and I was also feeling empowered to liberate myself from old patterns, So Fly is also very much a celebration. Um, and it's kind of like a celebration breakup song in a way, I
Okay.
guess. Um, yeah, that's what it feels like to me. But it also feels so fitting that my first song is called Fly and it's about spreading your wings. This feels like a really big moment in time. It's been a long time coming and it's very meaningful. So it comes out on all platforms this Tuesday, the 25th of March. You can actually find the pre-save link in my bio. If you really want to hear the song, it's already on Triple J Unearthed, thanks to my wonderful manager who managed to make that happen. Um, Shout out to Jeff, who I think possibly is watching or came on and left, who knows. But the link to have a listen to it on Triple J Unearthed is also in my bio, and performing it live at the very place that embraced me when I first moved to Melbourne, Shot
Mhm.
Kickers, as part of the Don't Sweat the Technique night. I'm headlining this coming Tuesday night on the day that it comes out.
Woo! I love it. I
Woo!
love it. So we're getting like a VIP kind of concert from Shira with the new single Fly. I love it. So the song
We
is
are.
basically about an expression of freedom from old situations that did not help you to grow.
Old situations that would not necessarily didn't help me to grow, because I believe difficult things are the things that help you to grow. But
Mm,
when you realize that they've come to a point where they're no longer helping you to grow, when it's time to actually say goodbye and spread your
mm,
wings, that's a really definitive moment for anybody when they empower themselves enough to walk away or to fly away,
yeah.
perhaps. Um, so it's more about that. It's more about that and recognizing and also being grateful for that time, like, I'm celebrating myself in this song as
Mm,
well. Like the chorus is, I'm brave for this, doesn't look the way I hoped, but I prayed for this. So that's a really important thing to acknowledge too, because we might pray and we might want something and we might be getting it, we might be getting the very thing that we want, but it doesn't look the way we thought it was going to look, and so we resist our journey. And I think the more we can accept and embrace what comes up along the way, the more we, I guess, just suffer a little bit less.
yeah. Yeah. Well.
you know?
Of course.
Yeah, well, we maybe.
Yeah.
Um, one other thing to note before we
Yes.
wrap is that my beautiful friend Arab
Yes.
is actually featured in my second single, which is coming out next month. That's called Found Me. We'll get to promoting that later, but
Yes.
he will be performing with me on the night on Tuesday. So he'll get
Beautiful.
to come up on stage and do a little preview of our next single, which is exciting. So he needs a shout out.
Of course, that's my man Arab. That's the Arab brother. Man,
And
he's
that's who I'm going to
very
write
talented.
with in a minute.
Yes. So yeah, but definitely
Yes.
shout out to Arab. But yeah, so I guess we'll wrap it up here, Shira. Was there anything else you wanted to add or anything you wanted to ask me, anything before we go?
No, I wanted to thank you. Thank you for this moment in time. Thank you for your presence and your energy and always being so supportive and lovely and encouraging. And yeah, grateful for this chat. I really enjoyed it. I feel like we dove straight in. So yeah, I'm grateful and I appreciate your support.
And I thank you for your music and you being surrounded by creative people like you is always a blessing from God.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thanks, Labzy.
Anytime, Shira. And yeah, so I want to say thank you for the people that have joined in, and this will be on Spotify as
Yes.
well as YouTube as well. And yeah, and
Will it be on the gram?
again,
Like,
yes, it'll be on
will
here.
this be
Yeah,
saved on your?
yeah. So
Okay, sweet.
this will post straight away, and then probably in the next few days, I'll have it on YouTube and Spotify.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's cool.
But
Love that for us.
yes, and yeah, well, I'll give you the tag and everything like that, so it'll all be there.
That's exciting. That's cool. All right. Well, it was a real pleasure, and I hope you enjoy this glorious Melbourne
Oh,
day because it's absolutely beautiful,
yeah,
stunning.
yes. Oh, well, I'll show you the sunrise that I was able to witness this morning. So, yeah, I'm already enjoying the day, so
Oh,
it's all good.
oh,
Yeah.
good.
All right.
All righty.
You enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you soon. All right?
Yeah, I'll probably see you Tuesday, I imagine,
Yes.
at the gig. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
No worries
Labzy. Bye,
anytime.
everyone.
Bye.
Real talk with Labzy, we speaking the truth. From the streets to the booth, giving voice to the groove. No holding back, every combo's the proof. It's the realest in the game, now we raising the roof. Real talk with Labzy,